What's up guys, Prime vs Prime back here today with a review of the Transformers Earthrise leader class Doubledealer. Doubledealer comes to us here in his bird mode. This figure has approximately 3 modes: the bird mode, a transportation / truck mode for the missile, as well as his awesome robot mode. Here we have the official configuration for Doubledealer in his bird mode, and I've got to say that for the most part this figure has turned out really nicely. Now I do in fact have all of the accessories stored within him, and as we go through the review and take a more detailed look at this bird mode, I will begin to slowly take them off just so you can get a more clean look for him. But as a whole, I think that they've done a really nice job in concealing some of the weapons, and I actually think the way the missile sits along the back of Doubledealer does look quite nice as well. And quite frankly, you wouldn't really be able to tell any of the other accessories were really on him unless I pointed them out. So coming to the underside, here we have the sensor or radar dish. This tabs into a port on the underside, as well as this Gatling gun. And then here on the back we've got the missile pods here, and then finally of course we've got the huge missile or rocket, and then this section here which acts as almost a support structure for when we get him into the missile launcher configuration when he is in the truck mode. Taking a closer look at this evil mercenary's head sculpt, we can see here that it is very reminiscent to that of a bird. I think Hasbro and Takara have done a magnificent job in capturing all of the different sculpting and panel linings. He does in fact have an articulated jaw which isn't painted in a nice red paint app, and we even have a nice detail such as the tongue, so you can just compress that. In terms of articulation for the head, there is a hinge joint allowing to look up and down. It is slightly restricted when you do insert the missile in, however when we move that out of the way you will get full range of motion, but a hinge joint allowing for up and down range of motion, as well as a full 360-degree swivel. As we turn our attention now to the wings, I really like the feathered like detailings that we've got here. All the different lines and the panel detailing all looks really cool, and these have got different hinges mainly due to transformation for when you compact them. However, there is a main ratchet joint allowing you to hinge them forwards and backwards, which is super cool, so you could have them in a more relaxed positioning, or you could in fact raise them depending on how you wish to display them. If I just remove the huge missile, once this is removed it is held in via this tab. This whole back section will in fact come off with it. So before I show you that, I just want to showcase that this section here does have some nice details as well within this mode. You can definitely see the detailing such as the feathers which swoosh back, so I think that's quite a nice attention to detail, and it does remove just by simply unclipping it from this section, and this additional support structure does just tab in via 2 slots. This port here mainly solidifies the connection. This one's just merely to stop it from wriggling around, but we'll take a closer look at these when we get him into the transportation mode and in the robot mode. So just setting those off for the side. And then coming under to the underside, we just want to remove one of the missiles from here. You can't really peg it into this section considering the way this transforms. This section for the bird mode comes down in order to lock this whole panel in. Technically you could disengage it, however you will then be mistransforming the figure and it just doesn't look too nice. So personally I just tend to plug that missile in this slot and then just pull this one out as well. And then finally, if we turn to this side, we do also have the Gatling gun stored underneath, as well as this sensor section, which once again I'll take a closer look in the other alternate forms. But for now we're just merely taking a look at the bird. I am actually glad that the front section of the truck or the transportation mode does actually compress a lot more on the bird than it initially looked in some of the product images and some of the in-hand images that we got. Some of those images depicted it as jutting out to the sides a lot more than it actually does, but it does in fact compress. And if I just showcase you here, you can see that these sections do actually collapse in upon themselves and actually tab into place. And once that's done, there are tabs on either side of this which click in. And whilst we're looking at it from a bird's eye perspective, no pun intended, you can once again see the fantastic feather detailings here on the wings, and just showcasing you the articulation. So you've got the hinge joint there, the flap here for the transformation, and then finally the ratcheted joint here for when we display him in this particular mode. So there's not really much else to say about this bird mode. Personally for me, I think this is the weakest out of all 3 of Doubledealer's modes. I think it's quite a nice looking mode and definitely does harken back to that original Generation 1 design and toy. But personally, I do actually prefer the next couple of modes that we're going to get him configured into. But I do think Hasbro and Takara have done a commendable job in actually getting this figure to triple change. You can see that the arms fold under here and actually do tab into this. But I'll showcase that more in the transformation. And then in terms of articulation here, we merely just have a hinge joint which is due to transformation, and then just a hinge joint here for the foot, which we too have got some nice bird-like detailings of the feet with the claws at the end. Here for some Earthrise leader class comparisons, we've got Doubledealer, Optimus Prime and Astro Train. So just showcasing you Doubledealer in his bird mode next to Optimus Prime within vehicle mode. You can see that in terms of their actual length, they are roughly the exact same size, with perhaps the head of Doubledealer protruding ever so slightly more than the flat-nosed truck. But if we bring in Astrotrain, you can see that this is definitely where we begin to see this almost leader class trend with these Earthrise figures. These two, I think, scale quite nicely and are more or less eye to eye in terms of the backs and the front. So these Earthrise figures, whilst they may not be as big as some of the other leader classes that perhaps we were used to in previous lines, I think that they more than make up for it in terms of their engineering, their accessories and their overall plastic quality. Astrotrain was an incredibly hefty feeling figure, and I definitely get that feeling when I do handle this Doubledealer figure as well. For a bird mode comparison, here we have leader class Doubledealer compared next to commander class Skylynx. You can see that the commander class scale is definitely leaps and bounds bigger than what we get with this leader class. However, I just thought it'd be quite cool to showcase these bird-like creatures standing side by side with one another. Definitely really nice looking alt forms for these two characters. So to transform Doubledealer from his bird mode into his transportation truck mode, we first of all want to begin with collapsing in these wings. So just fold these sections in and then fold these pieces up. We can now come to this area here, collapse this toe section in and fold this in. And then repeat the same process here for this side, just fold that in as well. We're now going to want to flip under to the underside, and now you're going to want to disengage this whole section from this arm. This is where this actually tabs in. So just showcasing that, you're going to want to detach it. You can see that there is a slot on the side of the arm that does plug into the tab. And we're going to just repeat the same process here for this opposite side. So just untab that and then come to this piece here and unhook that from this torso area. With that now done, we can take this piece and unhook this. And then that will then allow us to move this whole front section of the robot mode forwards. And then we can just collapse this down into the place that it's going to take within vehicle mode. Flip this to this side now, as this is the basis for the truck mode. Here, what we can begin to do is come to this front section and just detach all of this. It does look rather slightly messy, so I'll just get a few things out of the way just so you can see this. But you're just going to want to then detach these sections away. You can see that there is a slot there that tab will peg into, so you're just going to want to dislodge that, and then now it's just a matter of pulling down on these legs, as you do have to push these out of their cavities now. So what I would recommend doing would be taking the wing and just folding out to the side, which will then allow you to clear this section, and then now we can just take this and push this forwards and try to dislodge the tabbing mechanism. And then once that's dislodged, it's just a matter of pulling down on the leg to free this whole joint up, which can be quite difficult to do. If you just want to wriggle that all out, and eventually it will come out of the joint. You do actually have to apply quite a significant amount of force once you do tab this in within bird mode. So that is a shame, and it's something that I'm not entirely sure whether these mushroom pegs are going to hold up over time. You can see that they are quite loose as it is. So I definitely do recommend to apply enough force, but not to the point where you think you could potentially break the figure, as I do think that this could become a problem over time. And then just lift this wing out of the way and repeat the exact same process now. So you're just going to want to take this and just push this section forward, just loosening this up. And then that will extend. Now what we can do is open these wings out once more and just open this whole cavity out. And now you're going to want to rotate this whole section in, rotate the bird head to the side, and then that will just collapse within there, and then just fold this section up. And then what we're going to want to do here is take this wing first and push this down, and then fold this section outwards. This will allow for clearance for when we get him into the truck mode so that he can roll smoothly, and then collapse the other wing over the top, and also fold that edge of the wing out as well. So we've got both edges of the wings deployed. Flip now to this side, and we're going to want to pull this section upwards, and utilizing the same tab, which is this here that we utilized for this slot in bird mode, you're going to want to peg it into this slot here on the thigh. So you just want to once again compress it and snap that into place, and it will just solidify incredibly securely. And now repeat the exact same process here for this side. So just align that up and snap that into place. And then of course, Here you can clip them in together, and you can also see here on the front of these I do in fact have some stress marks. This one a lot more evidently than this side, and I do believe that that's probably to do with the actual hinge joints of when I did connect this in for bird mode. So definitely be cautious of this. I do definitely think that there is too much pressure actually applied to these pieces when transforming, and I have transformed this figure back and forth now for several times, and each time it is still a problem. So I don't think that it's necessarily an issue that I've mistransformed it. I just think that it is just a clearance issue. We can then take this whole section, rotate this around, and these two tabs will plug into these slots. So just snap those into place, and then we can proceed to turn our attention to this side. So you're going to want to bring this whole piece downwards, and then bring this whole piece upwards. Rotate this around now, and this slot here will plug into this tab. So just utilize those double hinge joints that we get for the elbows, and tap those into place, and just fold this section up. Repeat the exact same process here for the opposite side now. So separate these two joints, fold this one down, and then with this one here, we're going to want to rotate this around, just align up with this slot, clip that in, and then fold this piece up. And now you're going to want to lift this piece up and fold this down. And without applying any of the additional accessories that this figure comes with, here we have the base vehicle mode for Doubledealer. You can see that within this mode, without adding any of the additional accessories, I think that it looks quite cool. It definitely does look very militaristic in its design. Definitely something that you would see deployed within a war. And I love all the sculpting and detailing that we've got here, as well as this very nice reflective blue paint apps and silver paint apps. They almost look like stickers. However, I can assure you that they are in fact painted details, as well as on the sides. So definitely a super cool looking vehicle mode. Very heavy duty and very robust in its overall design. Without further ado, we'll take a closer look at some of the accessories, and then I'll slowly begin to add them onto this figure. So starting off with the biggest accessory, here we have the huge missile. Now this has been cast in a grey plastic, however I think that the details more than make up for the rather bland and lackluster colour scheme. We have got some nice silver highlights, as well as this really nice blue paint apps. And I think that the red does complement this quite nicely. There are various different ports for you to add additional weapons on. We can see here that this is the clip that we utilise within the bird mode, and then some of the other posts are used for both robot mode and now this carrier / truck mode. This section does in fact split into two pieces. So this is the weapon that you'll use on the shoulder of Doubledealer, and then this is more of a handheld gun for him. However, for this configuration, we're going to leave them combined. And showcasing you how you actually peg the missile onto this main carriage section, you can see under here that there are two ports that you will use these two tabs to peg into. So just align those up and they will snap into place rather nicely. We also do get a pair of black missile pods. These don't really have too much details to them at all and are just merely a black plastic. However, they do look quite nice when on the figure, and these just peg into either sides of the forearms for this mode. So just peg this one onto this side. Technically you could peg them wherever there is a port, however this is the configuration that I definitely like to do for this mode. And just align this up. We also saw earlier on that we do get this sensor / radar, and this has also been detailed quite nicely and has got various different ports and pegs, and has also got a nice grey paint app, and this just pegs into the top. And then we take the machine gun, which too has been cast in a black plastic, however has actually got some nice details. We just port that in here. And then we turn our attention now to the back of the vehicle mode, and then this is where we utilize this section. Now technically I guess you could call this parts forming, however for me this is more of an additional piece that you can just use, so I tend to just use this as an accessory and it doesn't really bug me too much. However, I know there'll definitely be some that see this as parts forming, but there are two huge posts here that you will use to plug into these ports. So you just want to align these up here and snap that into place, and then these sections you can just move and have those sit flush. You can't really push this section up without forcing it, and then it will just pop off the joint, so I don't really mind leaving it like this, and you can attach any of the additional Earthrise connector pieces onto this in order to create a nice ramp. So that is all of the accessories fully equipped within Doubledealer's vehicle mode, and I think he looks incredibly heavily armoured and definitely a mercenary to be taken seriously amongst the Autobots and Decepticons. The huge missile really complements this mode incredibly nicely. I do like all the different missile pods and the machine guns at the top, and I really also like how these support structures here sit along the side. This definitely does make this vehicle look as if though it can do some heavy damage to his opponents. And I just think that it's a really nice, very intimidating looking vehicle. In terms of features in this mode, of course, it can roll on all of these caster wheels. However, you can in fact turn this into a missile launcher base, and in order to do that, you're just going to want to take these pieces and hinge those out to the sides to make them look as if though they're supporting the weight of this, which I just think is so cool. And even these sections here have been cast in a really nice dark black plastic and have got some spring detailings in there as well, with all of the different pistons, very authentic to that of a real life structure. And then we just simply take this whole base here, and you can just raise the missile up into your own personal preference. And just moving the camera into a different configuration, just so I can showcase to you how the missile looks within this mode. I think that this looks awesome. This is definitely my favorite out of Doubledealer's alt modes. The way that these support structures come out to the back, and the missile is ready to depart and take out whatever target Doubledealer has his eyes set on. You could, in theory, bring this all the way back if you wanted to. However, I wouldn't apply too much pressure, as you are more than likely going to begin to actually detach this. But you could have this in a more upright configuration if you so choose, to make it look as if though it's going to shoot out of the back, or you can compress this and have this more at an angle to a degree which I believe is more realistic to a real life scenario. So I'm definitely thoroughly impressed by this alt form for Doubledealer. Coming back to a comparison between some of the other Earthrise leader class figures, my point still stays very strong to what I stated earlier on, that I do believe that these figures are just really and truly Voyager class figures that have got a lot more advanced engineering, are made out of a lot more durable plastic, and come with a heck of a lot more accessories. I don't really think that they're leader in terms of their scale, well, at least to what we were used to, but I do think that they're leader in terms of how much plastic they use. You can see here that this is definitely a very substantial figure. It does weigh a lot as well. I can't really convey to you how much this weighs, but it does feel like an incredibly weighty piece, especially when we do have all of the accessories deployed. And I think that it's a very similar situation to what we got with Astrotrain, where he too was quite a hefty figure on his own, and he did come with the additional cargo and the additional accessories. So I just guess it depends on what you're looking for and your preference. If you are happy with paying a leader price point for essentially a better made Voyager with additional accessories, then I'm sure you'll love this. However, if you are used to your leaders being just bigger robots in general, then I'm not too sure whether that the new leader class format Hasbro is going for is really going to be your cup of tea. But just giving you, once again, a side comparison, you can see that Astrotrain is exactly the same size as in terms of Doubledealer. And then if we're just bringing Optimus Prime, he is slightly more compact. And you can see that just bringing this in for a closer look, Doubledealer is definitely a very large looking vehicle. And if he is on the Decepticon side for this battle, he's definitely going to be a threat to Optimus Prime. Now, in terms of transformation from vehicle mode into the final mode, that being robot mode, we first of all, of course, want to remove all of the accessories that he comes with. So just remove the missiles, the sensor, as well as the actual huge missile itself, and then finally this whole back plate. What I like to do here is detach this section and then come to these legs here and pull those apart. They are held in by very thick tabs and slots, so really do require quite a substantial amount of force. Just disengage this tab here, and then here you're just going to want to bring this forwards and then rotate and fold upwards, and then just collapse this section back, and that's one leg fully transformed, so rather simplistic. Repeat the same process here for this side. Bring that around, swivel it to the side, and collapse the heel spur down. And then here we have the very chunky legs for Doubledealer fully transformed. Now we can take these arms here and just bring those out to the sides, clip those into place, rotate the wrist sections out, fold that down, and then repeat the same process here for this side. Just fold that out as well, and then take this whole piece back, bring this to the back. Now we're actually out of vehicle mode. We can compress these ever so slightly more, just so that we don't restrict the waist joint. We want to lift the end of the wings in and do that on both sides, and then just compress this down. Come to this section, rotate this around and collapse this section up. And then now just adding all of the additional accessories. This is once again is up to your own interpretation, but we have to take this piece, and you can see two slots here. These two tabs will in fact port into. So just align those up and give that a really nice squeeze and push, as it does take quite a lot of force to push in there. Just bring these sections out to the sides. We can then spin around to this section, separate the cannon, take this piece and port that into the shoulder, and then take this blaster here and port that into the hand. Take the sensor section, and I guess we could either plug this into the collarbone or where the inner shoulder would be, or you can actually peg it into the outer shoulder. And then we can take this mini machine gun, put that on the side as well, and then these missile pods you can plug into the base of the legs. Just rotate those so they are the proper configuration. It's really up to your own interpretation how you display the weapons on this figure. But after a very simplistic transformation from vehicle mode, here we have the Transformers Earthrise Leader Class Double Dealer fully transformed into his badass looking robot mode. And I think, in my own opinion, looking fantastic. This is a perfect resemblance to that original Generation 1 character design and to the original G1 toy that we got way back in the day. This figure looks really, really nice. Once again, the colour that really pops out to me is this light blue. The plastic that they've used on this is incredibly vibrant and definitely pops out to me from some of the other blander colours. We've got some nice details here of the red paint apps, as well as some nice blue paint applications in the actual centre sections of the grooves. The purple paint apps here. All the paint apps on this figure have come out really clean, in particular the head sculpt. However, we'll take a closer look at that in just a second. And just giving you a quick 360-degree rotation on him. You can see that there isn't really much in terms of back kibble. If you do remove this section, his back becomes even cleaner. It's merely just the wings of the bird mode that do stick out ever so slightly. However, I do believe that's mainly due to their colour being vastly different to the rest of the figure. But definitely a super cool looking representation of Double Dealer. So let's take a closer look at the details. Taking a look at Double Dealer's awesome head sculpt, you can see here that the main helmeted section has been painted in a really nice matte black, and we've also got that super nice blue paint application. To me, almost makes me believe as if though he's perhaps wearing a face mask, similarly to that of like Batman or Robin. It is sculpted in that sort of a way, and it is actually a different shade of blue than the rest of the figure. So to me, just does stand out ever so slightly more than the rest of the sculpt. But we have got some nice details of the mouth, and I do like the red eyes. Personally, for me, there is actually a gimmick where you can swap this figure from being a Decepticon or an Autobot, depending on who pays him more for the job that he has to carry out. But for me, he looks more menacing than anything, so I'll probably be keeping him on the Decepticon side. And speaking of insignias, here you can have the Autobot insignia, or you can actually flip up this panel here, and you can in fact reveal a Decepticon insignia. A really nice Easter egg that Takara and Hasbro didn't have to implement, but I'm so glad that they did, as it's just Easter eggs like this that definitely notch a figure up in my personal opinion. And we've got some nice yellow paint apps here. And then of course we can do the other side, as he's obviously not going to be on both sides, so we can flip this up into a Decepticon insignia as well. Turning to this torso region, we've got the red paint apps, as well as the lighter blue paint apps within the centre of these sections. The purple, the black has all come out really nicely, and you can in fact open this up, and you could technically, in theory, store a cassette in there. Now, I do believe that his were Nox, and I'm not familiar with the other one's name. I do in fact have the Takara Tomy Selects Soundwave Spy Patrol box set, and I will be doing a review of this after that, so if you wish to see how they look on this figure, then definitely stick around for their own individual reviews. However, you can see in here there's loads of circuitry detailing, and I have just got Ravage just so you can see how this does look. You can simply just place one of these cassette-like characters in there and then store it up. And I just think that's such a cool feature. A feature that he does also have, which I'm not entirely sure of the origin of, and would be so grateful if someone could let me know down in the comment section below as to its relevance. But you can in fact remove this whole section, and I have no idea as to why you wish to do that. And even when you do remove it, you do in fact have some extra detailing. So to me, it definitely does seem as if there is a reasoning behind this functionality. So if you do know the reasoning for this, definitely be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. But as we begin to work our way down, we've got the details of the fingers, loads of sculpt work here, and then finally here we've got the legs. I do like how they've placed the hollow spaces actually within the inner section so that we don't see them from the sides, the front, nor the back, so that's super cool. The feet do look rather clunky. I do believe it's probably this piece. If it was just the toe section, they'd look slightly better. But overall, definitely a really nice looking figure. In terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint, a very stiff ball joint, may I add, so it can left to right as well as up and down ever so slightly. We do get a full 360 rotation at the arms. The arms can hinge out to the sides. Full 360 rotation at the bicep, and then a double jointed bend at the elbow for transformation. Full 360 rotation at the wrist, as well as full 360 rotation at the waist. Ratcheted legs forwards and ratcheted legs backwards, as well as a hinge joint out to the sides. We could also rotate this here on a mushroom peg, and then we do get articulation at the knee, allowing for nearly a 90-degree bend of motion. However, it's not quite there, and of course that can hinge forwards. And then finally, as we would expect, he does in fact have ankle rocker spurs, which is super cool to see. And for a quick Earthrise leader class comparison, here we have Double Dealer compared next to Astro Train and Optimus Prime, and you can see that he is the biggest out of all three leaders. So if you are in the market for the biggest bang for your buck, Doubledealer is definitely the one to go for. He is considerably larger than that of Astrotrain in terms of how broad he is and in terms of how tall he is. Just giving you a side by side, perhaps if I rotate it around this side so you can see the head. You can see that he does literally tower over Astrotrain, which is great to see. Makes him even more of an intimidating character. And then bringing in Optimus Prime, he is also slightly taller than Prime himself. So definitely bigger than your standard Voyager, and these two are quite big for Voyagers. So I would say that out of all the leader classes, he's probably the most substantial out of them all. Really, really cool figure. So there was my review for Transformers Earthrise Leader Class Doubledealer. Personally, I really enjoyed this figure. I think that his bird mode, whilst it may not be the strongest out of all of his modes, is definitely a really fun Easter egg to those of you who are familiar with the original G1 cartoon as well as toy. I think that it does quite a nice job in recapturing Doubledealer's bird form, and it's definitely quite a nice inclusion for this figure. For me, it is definitely the vehicle mode which carries the missile that stands out to me the most out of his alt forms. I think that looks awesome, especially when decked out with all of the accessories that this figure does come with. And then as we turn to robot mode, of course, this is the superior mode out of all of them. I think that this is a really nice refreshed uptake on the Cybertronian mercenary. Super cool looking figure, a great range of articulation, superb accessories, and just overall some nice details. May not be the best in terms of engineering, but I think that it more than makes up for it in terms of the features, such as the Decepticon insignias, which can flip from Autobot insignias, the whole gimmick that goes on with the chest, as well as all the accessories that you can mess around with the figure with. And he's definitely not a simplistic Transformer. I just don't think that he is as complex as that of Astrotrain. He's just more along the lines of a regular Voyager in my opinion, but it's definitely a massive upgrade than that Blitzwing repaint that we got a few years back. So that was my review for the Leader Class Doubledealer. Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below your own personal opinion on this figure and whether or not you'll be adding him to your collection. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until my next review, I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.